Please feel free to go there. Here in this room, we will be having the 11:10 to 12 noon emerging scholarship session, for which I will be serving as the moderator. All right. So take a bit of time to get ready for that. If you're able at this moment, please do complete the evaluation form we would like to have from everyone. We want to know what you think of what's going on here today at the Inclusion Symposium. So we're going to get started at 11:10. I'm going to, just for your convenience, drop the various links necessary for today in the chat again.
Are we required to be quiet right now? I'm just kind of wondering.
What was the question?
Are we required to be quiet right now?
No, you all can
Okay.
talk if you like.
Okay. The presenters so far have been very good. I really like the arts exhibit from Miss Carolyn Rose Dyson.
Awesome. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. When we were planning today's symposium, I immediately thought of her because I thought her stuff fit so well into what we were trying to do.
I think that's great too. I have a question though. Are we in a specific order for the symposium for Coppin State University? Only asking because I actually would prefer to go first if that's possible. If not, I'm okay with it. Only because I was speaking about Black love in my research, or African love in my research. So I thought it would be great if I go first since she kind of we could just shift into the next space.
Well, that's fine with me. Um, Your fellow presenters, do you guys have any preferences about the order that you go in today?
Fine if she goes first.
Miss Holmes, I sent you something.
I know I was supposed to go.
She
So
can
just
go
check
first,
it.
but we did receive something that told us what order we were going in.
Okay. So I think someone said that they sent something. Who was that? I'm not sure I caught that.
Dr. Lewis Moon, but I don't
Okay.
have what you sent. So let me just see.
I'll resend it to you, Miss Holmes.
Okay.
So let us come to an agreement on this now. So there was a particular order that you all were supposed to present in. And however, we have an interest in changing that order. I suppose that most of you guys don't mind, but is there anyone that would like to keep their particular spot? I suppose it's only the first presenter. I'm sorry?
I'm Michael Johnson. I'll stay in the last spot.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
I'll stay in the second spot. I'm William Johnson.
Okay.
I'm Deshay Rasco. I'm comfortable with my current slot.
And you, your slot is?
I'm scheduled for 11:35 a.m.
Okay.
My name is April Lee, and I'm comfortable with my spot at 11:20.
Okay. So, okay, April Lee, 11:20, and who was that was going at 11:35?
Deshay Rasco.
I'm so sorry. I did not think it was going to cause all of this. I'm just gonna let's just keep me in line. I'll stay in my spot. I'm at 11:25. It's only 15
Okay.
minutes later. I'm okay with that. I apologize. Thanks everybody though who was willing to allow me to go first. I appreciate that.
All right.
No problem.
So thank you guys.
Miss Holmes, did you see the message Miss French just sent to you?
Yes, but I kind of feel like I'm in a spot. So it's kind of up to you guys at this point.
She
It's
said
okay.
she's willing to switch, so you may go first.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Nichelle.
Thank you, Miss French.
Okay, so thank you so much for you all joining us here today. This is the Emerging Scholarship Session in Courtney Hobson's WebEx room. My name is Asohe Irabor, and I'll be moderating this session, which really means that I'll be monitoring the chat and helping to keep track of time. As a reminder, please keep yourself muted if you are not speaking. And if you have a question or comment, you can post it in the chat. You can find the chat by clicking on the symbol located in the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. If it's possible for you to leave your camera on, please do. It's always helpful to the speaker, but you don't have to. As I mentioned earlier, I've put a link in the chat for the Google slide deck. You can use that to maneuver to another session to see what's going on if you want to, or what's coming up next. At the end of this session, I'll be sharing a link to an evaluation form. Once again, you don't need to fill out a form for every single session. However, we do want you to fill out a form if you're able to be able to evaluate your experience of the symposium as a whole so that we can share it with, of course, our sponsors or anyone else that needs to have it. Please do recall to put your questions in the chat if you happen to have them, and I can read them for you. Or, as always, I'll give a prompt so that you can be ready to unmute if need be, to either ask your own question or to interact with the speaker. So with that, we're going to be getting started promptly at 11:10 with our first speaker.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Catherine Bancoli Medina, Professor of History at Coppin State University. I am so pleased to be here today. I've been very excited about this program, this upcoming program. So on behalf of Coppin State University, I bring you greetings. And I want to thank the Drescher Center for their support. And of course, I have a lot to say about the Drescher Center, but I'm not a speaker, so I don't have the time to tell you, but I have an awful lot of wonderful things to say about the Drescher Center. I'm a past fellow of the Drescher Center, so I'm very proud of that, of the Inclusion and Imperative Initiative. And I want to thank Dr. Abner Lewis Moon for conceptualizing and arranging for this particular program of emerging scholars. We have some of our history students here who will discuss just some of their research, not all of it, but just some of it. And we may have some students who may not be able to be with us today. I'm not sure. We had quite a few. Dr. Taisha Dupree Wilson, one of our colleagues, as well as Dr. Abner Lewis Moon and myself, we teach a number of courses that help facilitate the research that our students engage in, including diasporic explorations, which was conceptualized by Dr. Abner Lewis Moon. Of course, she's been teaching for many years. Dr. Dupree Wilson teaches, among other things, history of the modern civil rights movement. And I also teach methods of historical research, and as well as other courses. So some of these students come out of those courses and some of those initiatives. I want to take a moment to thank Carol Rhodes Dyson for her fantastic presentation. I have another she wrote to add to my slate, so thank you so much. I also want to thank the Dean Moffitt, for raising up Ketanji Brown Jackson and the confirmation yesterday, which is an incredible historic event. And I want to thank Dr. Marangolo for her support and her incredible kindness. Rachel Brubaker and Courtney Hobson, who I know, and I want to say, while I still have the chance, I miss very much. So I'm going to say that. And I just want to end with the Drescher Center gives us access to one of the most important discussion and interaction spaces for the discussion of humanities. And so I'm very pleased to be here representing Coppin State University. And at this moment, I will turn the microphone over to Dr. Abner Lewis Moon, Associate Professor of History at Coppin State University.
Thank you, Dr. Bancoli Medina. Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Abner Lewis Moon, and I am very proud and excited to introduce our history scholars and the exciting research that Coppin State University undergraduate students are engaging in our session today. Today, they will share their ideas and their new insight on topics in the African diaspora. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, each student will be able to present just a small taste of their research, but they will be immediately followed by other students. So we'll save time in the end for audience questions. And so again, I am excited to present each student to you this morning. Our first presenter will be Lanice Holmes, discussing African love and marriage tradition, followed by Sabria Poole, Ghost Town, Old Town Mall from the 1960s to the present day, followed by Mr. William Johnson, Turner Station, a community that thrived during segregation. Immediately followed by April Lee, discussing her project, Singing Our Song, African American Women in Opera, followed by Nichelle French, with the analysis of post-imperialism through the lens of Equatorial Guinea. She'll be followed by Tanisha Smith, who will be discussing COVID-19 mortality and African versus people of African descent in America. Then we'll have Deshae Rasco examining what could have been, the growth and influence of Afrofuturism. And we'll end with Mr. Michael Johnson, who will be discussing the enduring legacy of Parker Gray High School in Alexandria, Virginia. I am excited to present to you our history scholars from Coppin State University, and we'll begin with Ms. Lanice Holmes. Ms. Holmes?
Okay, there we are. I was trying to upload my my African Love PowerPoint presentation. So, hello everyone. I am Lanice Holmes. I'm very excited to be here today talking about African love. Forgive me if I'm a little fast. I know we're on a time constraint and I kind of have a lot to say in a little bit of time. So let me go ahead and get started. So I did mine on African love because I feel like a lot of times we are illuminated in the African diaspora for having broken families. And while we do know that intact families do exist, I think it is important for us to all know that there was a time where we were thriving in the African diaspora where love is concerned. So let's just talk about the traditions of African marriage. So I got a lot of my research from Josabi Marias, and one of the things that I've learned with this research is that marriage was a fun and festive process. There were a lot of ceremonies in place before the actual wedding took place. So um, I am not sure how to pause this, but I'm going to try to just hold here. So there was the knocking ceremony, which is when the potential groom and his family knocked on the potential bride's home at night. And if they were welcomed into the home, then that was a great step towards marriage. That means they had accepted that this groom would be their daughter's husband. The engagement ceremonies were just letters sent to the bride's family offering a dowry, or bride price is what they call it also, asking for their blessing to marry their daughter. And cola nuts are a very important symbolism in the African marriage because they symbolized healing, respect, hospitality, and unity. And those, any family that is going to join one family to another are going to need those as a foundation for a lasting marriage. The henna ceremony was for the bride to be given wisdom and gifts from the lady elders of the community to prepare her and support her for the big change that she was about to undertake in her life. There's a tradition of submission, and I know a lot of us have issues with that word submission. I just think that a negative connotation has been added to the word submission, but really submission is a good thing because we would submit to the husband, and the husband can want to submit to us as well. So it's not a negative thing. It's actually a beautiful part of the ceremony. But this is when a bride takes a drink and kneels before her husband to symbolize her willingness to submit to the order of the household, because most of us, we would like to be protected in the natural order, which is the man protects us. We're not going to go protect him. He's going to protect us. So everybody doesn't agree with that. That's okay. I know that there are a lot of different ideas and principles in life, so that's fine. But it is still a good thing. Matching clothes was a big thing in African traditions. The entire family of the bride would pick a cloth that everyone could wear, and everybody would have a different design, but they would have the same cloth. So I thought that was very beautiful. My favorite part was the tasting of the elements, and that is because I think marriage encompasses so much, and many of us are married, so we understand that the different stages that marriage goes through. And with the tasting of elements, there are four. There's lemon for the sour moments, vinegar to represent the bitterness of marriage that a marriage can face at times, cayenne pepper for the passion of love and romance, and honey for the sweetness and joy that a marriage should bring. So, of course, we all know that all of those things exist in a marriage or a romantic relationship. Let's see, jumping the berm was to represent the past, and was to represent letting go of the past and moving into the new future with your husband, or being as husband and wife. Ancestors are a big part of African traditional marriages because they pour libations and they summon the ancestors in the spiritual world to gain blessings and to gain blessings for weddings, births, and deaths, and any other major event in a family's life. Marriage involves the entire community because it is arranged. Most of the marriages pre-slavery were arranged. But I believe that this was a very beautiful thing because a lot of times when we're young, we're not mentally fully developed until we're about age 25, according to John Sandrock in Adolescence. So our families choosing our families choosing a mate for us, I think is a big deal because it's great that they know what's best because they've already lived. Most of us like the autonomy and agency to choose who we like, but not most of us, a lot of us choose wrong. I know I got to be careful how I word things. But a lot of us don't choose rightly on the front end. And I'll speak for myself. That definitely is true for me. But I believe that if this was my marriage setup, I think I would love it because the marriage, everyone is involved. When you choose for yourself, you and your husband are in this together and no one else is completely involved. But when you're in marriage like this, like, whoa, everyone's involved. The community, the elders, everyone, they're blessing you. If something goes wrong, you can go to the elders. Everyone's involved. So I feel like it keeps it together a little tighter, which I love. So they knew what was best for their society and it worked. And marriage was the basis for pure love of our family to choose what is best for us. And it doesn't seem like love on the front end, but ultimately the people who love you the most are choosing what is best for you. So I personally like the way that it was done before. And in conclusion, I would say to get the African American family back restored, I think we have to bring back the importance of family. We have to redefine our village and the responsibilities of each member therein, valuing virginity and chastity as we used to before slavery began, understanding our roles in the family dynamic for the greater good of our society. And I feel like we need more families to reflect the generational success that we used to experience as individuals of the African diaspora. I'm done.
Wonderful. So we can move on to our next speaker.
Mr. Johnson, you'll be next.
How do I unshare the screen? Do you know that? I'm sorry. I am not. Can you just kick it off of there or no? Oh, I got it. Never mind. Thank you. No, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't have it. Can you guys kick the document off or no?
Just look up and hit stop sharing. You should see a sign say stop sharing. Hit that.
I actually don't have that option. I had it the other day when I was sharing with you guys, but I don't have that option right now.
So now we're just looking at you. Your slides have been removed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm muting now. Sorry.
We can have our next speaker share their slides now.
Okay, wait a minute. Uh-oh, I'm stuck. Okay. Okay, my name is William Johnson. My presentation will be on Turner Station, a Black community that thrived on segregation. The agenda will be when Turner Station was established, jobs and how jobs created housing, the churches that were created due to the bringing together of the community, education that was needed for the children, local businesses that helped the community to thrive, entertainment and recreation, and the people in their families, and then revitalization as to what is going on now. Introduction. Turner Station was a Black community that was built on the Baltimore Spurs Point Railroad, and it received its name because of the stop. It was called Turner Station Depot. So that's how they got its name. It was built on a property that was owned by Joshua Turner, and he owned 460 acres of swampland in Dundalk. Turner Station was established in 1888, and the reason for it was because Bethlehem Steel had built a location at Spurs Point, and it needed workers. They were able to build housing for white workers at Spurs Point, but they did not build housing for blacks. So the blacks started to build their own housing in a development that was owned by Joshua Turner. And then at that particular time, he decided to parcel out the land for apartments and housing, and it became Turner Station. The jobs in the area. Bethlehem Steel had been around since the 1890s, so therefore they created jobs. But during the Great Migration of the World War II, you had jobs from General Motors, Continental Cans, and Western Electric. These jobs paid an incredible amount of money because at this particular time, the minimum wage was 75 cents. The average job there either paid $4.36 up to $13.96. So they were great paying jobs. Also, what they allowed people to do is when you graduated from high school, you could automatically get one of these jobs because they would train you. As far as the housing, what was necessary is, of course, as people moved into the area, there was a need for housing. What truly changed things was during World War II, you had an influx of manufacturing, which caused a great influx of people that came into Turner Station. During this time, also, you had FDR had come out with his New Deal Act, and during the New Deal Act, housing was provided for low income and minorities, and these homes were created in Ernest Line, Solace Point, and Day Village. Ernest Line was an African American minister who actually became the ambassador to Liberia at one time, and that's where the homes got their name. They were single family homes, apartments, and townhomes. The churches in the beginning, in 1900, St. Matthew's was founded, which was the first church ever founded in Turner Station. And as the community grew, there was a need for different types of religion. For example, I went to the last church that is listed here, which is Mount Olive Baptist Church. I'm a member, and I joined that church in 1977. So as the community grew, there was a need for different religious groups as well as churches. And then there is one Catholic church, but it is located just outside of Turner Station in the Dundalk area. As far as education and entertainment, in 1948, Solace Point High School was was built. And the great thing about that is at that same time, the Office of Communication came to Turner Station and gave the students there a standardized test. They actually ended up testing in the top 5% of any school in the country. That included white schools, which was amazing because they were using subpar materials. So at that particular time, they were wondering, how is this possible? What made it possible was the fact that the teachers, students, as well as the parents all came together to make sure that the kids got an education. In order to be a teacher at Solace Point, you had to have a 4-year degree, and those teachers, by having those degrees, pushed their students to be degrees. My mother, who graduated from that school, her graduating class was 100% attended college. As far as entertainment, what you had is you had the Anthony Theater, which was one of the first theaters built in the area as far as Black communities. It was a 700-seat theater, and he built it so that he could bring the community together. You also had a place called Adams Bar and Lounge, which during that particular time was bringing in entertainment such as Cab Calloway, Pearl Bailey, Red Fox, and in the DMV, It was actually one of the best clubs in the area, and people came from all over to come and visit it. The local businesses, this is what made the community thrive. The reason why they were able to do so well during segregation. You had a cleaners, you had several markets, you had 3 grocery stores, you had cab companies that were developed, you had people who had their own gas station, funeral homes. And to this day, you still have one of the icons of the area, Speed's Barbershop, which I often frequent myself. And they've been around since the beginning of Turner Station. Also, one of the greatest things about this and what made this amazing to me is, as I found my research, is a dollar bill changed hands 8 times in Turner Station before it ever left the community, which showed you how great a thriving business they actually had. Recognizable people from the area. The gentleman on the left with Elmo is Kevin Clash. He was a puppeteer. I remember Kevin was one of my best friends. I actually was there when he built his first puppet. He got his start on a afternoon TV show that we called Captain Kangaroo. And from there, he went on to do Elmo and work with Hanson, the other great puppeteer. Of course, lately in the news, we've had the information about Henrietta Lacks and her HeLa cells. Robert Kerbine was one of the first astronauts, black astronauts, and he came out of Turner Station. You had Larry Middleton, who was one of the middleweight boxers who was the champion. And then there were also someone by the name of Douglas Provines. Douglas Provines is a jazz trombonist, who is a Grammy winner. And there are other people that actually came from the area, such as Calvin Hill, who played for the Dallas Cowboys, and who is the father of Grant Hill, who played for Duke and played NBA basketball. Now, lately, Turner Station has been trying to go through a revitalization because Spurs Point shut down Bethlehem Steel in 1985. They've been waiting to see if there's a new industry that can come in. And what happened is Spurs Point and Bethlehem Steel were eventually sold. And recently, the person that purchased it has decided to turn it into a warehouse district. That is why you have one of the largest Amazon warehouses in the country is located in Spurs Point and Dundalk, and they are trying to bring back jobs through warehousing and revitalize the area. In closing, the community that once thrived through segregation is trying to make a change and desegregate, but the lack of the community as it was has made the community lose a little bit of its luster. And through things such as the Juneteenth celebration and homecoming, they're trying to bring it back to the way it used to be. I used these people as my sources, and I look forward to doing additional research. Matter of fact, as soon as we finish this call today, I have to go talk to an 85-year-old Mary Stokes, who lived through this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We will now have the next presenter.
Okay, I think that should be me. Okay, let me share my screen. Oh, no. Okay, I'm probably going to have to go without sharing my screen this morning. So my topic is singing our voices, the African American women who are in opera. And basically my research is about opera singers prior to Marian Anderson. It was a question that hit me in one of my classes where that all the times of African American history, Black History Month came around, they were always talking about Marian Anderson. And I'm like, there's got to be more Black opera singers. And during a research, I found out there are many, many more African American women who sang opera. And there's even a first, even though she's not credited with being the first. She is the first opera singer. There were also many others. There was Grace Brumbry. There is Jessie Norman. There is also, God forgive me, I can't remember her name, Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield. She is technically considered the first African American opera singer. It's even down in record books in England that she is the first and only Black African American opera singer to sing for the Queen. There are also many other women that led the way. That one is known as the Black Patty. I think her name was Sister Rita. But this research struck me because I always want to know who was actually the first. Where did it start? What time period did it start? Therefore, I started doing a lot of research. This research is still ongoing, but I have came across so many magnificent, interesting women during this journey and during this research that basically have led me down this path that I just don't want to stop now. There is so much information that spans across music history, African American history, Black women's history, or I'm sorry, African American women's history, that I'm pretty sure it's going to lead up to a lot of women now that have basically are where they are now in history. In opera. So that's pretty much the gist of it because it's still currently ongoing. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask me. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to save the questions for the end. We'll go right on into the next speaker, please.
I'm trying to fix the PowerPoint situation right now, so please continue, but I might be, fuddling around a bit in the background.
Are we able to have our next presenter? Go ahead.
Ms. Rasco, you can present in the meantime.
Okay, no problem. Hello, everyone. My name is Deshae Rasco, and my presentation, give me 1 second. Are you guys able to see okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can see your slides.
Okay, perfect. So my presentation is titled What We Could Have Been, the Growth and Influence of Afrofuturism. So to start off, Afrofuturism is a movement in literature, music, art, etc., featuring futuristic or science fiction themes which incorporate elements of Black history and culture. So Afrofuturism is a cultural aesthetic that combines science fiction, history, and fantasy to explore the African American experience and aims to connect those from the Black diaspora with their forgotten African ancestry. The concept of Afrofuturism continues to grow within the literature and the arts. The following research that I've been able to conduct introduces and develops the topic a little more for the younger generations. Afrofuturism reshapes the mind of the current African Americans to envision a culturally inclusive future, and it intersects history with scientific advancements to create an environment without the influence of systematic oppression. So, little do you know, Afrofuturism was first introduced and made mainstream around the 1980s, and it still remains prevalent in today's world. The concept of Afrofuturism has been more present in our media than ever today. The current most popular depiction of Afrofuturism has been in the Marvel film The Black Panther. The Black Panther highlights the country of Wakanda. The fictional country was able to fully thrive without the influence of systematic oppression, Compared to the rest of the world, it was dramatically advanced in technology, arts, and weaponry. One of the central conflicts of the movie includes a character named Killmonger, and Killmonger sort of serves as an anti hero, and he relates more to the history of a typical African American man. His character bridges the gap between the fictional world and our current one by showcasing the impact of the historical and cultural influence over African American lives. So, in terms of Afrofuturism, you may ask, why should we rely on fiction? Simply because it mirrors our history and envisions our future. Through Afrofuturism, though Afrofuturism is a fictional concept, it relies heavily on the African diaspora and its current culture climate. Afrofuturism deserves to be recognized because it sheds a positive light on the progression of the African American and Black communities and encourages African Americans to embrace and learn about their past so that they can aim for the stars for a better future. It also helps African Americans relate more to their ancestry. Today, the influence of Afrofuturism is more essential than ever because of the lasting effect of the colonization of Africa, coupled with chattel slavery, continues to affect African Americans through present generations. So, my research proves that not only is it a concept worth studying, it's becoming a key component of our cultural growth within the United States of America. And that's just the introduction to my research.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Roscoe.
Thank you.
We can move on to our next speaker.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sabria Poole, and I'll be presenting. The topic of my presentation is the Old Town Mall area, aka ghost towns. The Old Town Mall area from the 1960s to present day. So I'm just going to talk briefly about what my research is focusing on. So we can just jump right into it. So basically, the Old Town Mall area, or also known as the Gay Street Market, and here located in Baltimore City, is known for being a shopping area that was once very thriving and full of life, full of merchants and customers. It was at first known to be a relief market, as a way for people to not have to go long distances to travel to go buy groceries or to buy clothing or anything like that. And it was created in 1818. And so from 1818 up until the 1960s, or not even the 1960s, up until World War II, I believe, I believe I'm correct. I want to make sure I'm getting my facts right as I'm presenting them to you. The market dwindled as the war started, basically because most of the people in the neighborhood were being pushed out to the suburbs. So the middle class that was basically fueling the income in this area was being pushed out. So over time, the market began to turn to not vacant, but the population in the area started to dwindle down, which caused a lot of the merchants that were there and retail salesmen to close their businesses because they weren't receiving a lot of money at the time. Around the 1960s, when the market during the Baltimore riots, that's when the markets they started to pick up. So the riots happened in 1968. So right before around 1965 up until 1968, the markets began thriving again, and more people began to shop there and spend their Black dollars there, as well as um I'm sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied, but they began to spend their Black dollars there as well. Um, and it was a difference than going to Lexington Market, which is maybe 30 minutes away from someone's house, whereas the Gay Street Market or the Old Town Mall shopping center was just a 2-minute walk for some people. But around the time that the Baltimore riots happened, again, there started to be a decline in sales. There was a host of burglaries, and it just caused the area in general to dwindle. So from 1968 up until the 1980s, there have been over 20 initiatives to put money back into the Old Town Mall community, and these initiatives have all failed. As of 2002, there have been initiatives to put a $4.3 billion, how do you say, plan into action to rebuild Old Town Mall. That plan hasn't happened yet. And as of 2016, the plan of restoring the Old Town Mall area has gone into the mall will the shopping area will be torn down and made into condominiums and parking lots and retail spaces that have nothing to do with the original cause or vision of the market. So the point of my research is just to show and bring awareness to how such a thriving part of Baltimore City has just been run down and has not been given much care or given much thought about. And even when it has been given thought about, it basically just has been pushed to the wayside. And my research is still continuing as we speak. So thank you all for listening. I hope you have a great day.
Question, is the first presenter whose PowerPoint is still on the screen, are they still in the room? Okay, if they're not still in the room, then I'm still trying to fix the PowerPoint issue because they need to leave and then come back in. But if they're not still here, then that's an interesting problem. So please continue. I'll still try to fix it on my end.
Okay,
Ms. Holmes, I believe this was Ms. Holmes's presentation. Is that so?
Yes.
So Ms. Hobson is asking for help from you. I think to take down your slides. Are you able to do this?
I'm literally in that meeting.
So I think, David, are you in the room now?
yes, I am. If you can, please stop the meeting completely for yourself and then rejoin.
Yeah, that's exactly what I just did because I wasn't here because I heard you guys talking about it when I came back in just now. And she actually said verbatim, that's interesting that she's not here and then this slide is still up. I do not know how to take it down. It doesn't say stop sharing or anything. I think the difference, I can tell you exactly what I did that's different than what everybody else did. Everybody else shared their screen. I shared a file. So that probably has something to do with it.
Okay, I don't have moderator proofs here. Courtney, are you on this call?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Can you remove, and this is your home room, can you remove the person that is sharing this?
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Sorry, I didn't mean it to sound like that.
No. How do I remove someone?
Yeah, I'm trying to find that one.
You just wait a minute, Miss French, please.
Can you assign me as a moderator or assign me as a co-host?
The only option it's giving me is assigning you as a presenter.
You can try that.
Oh wait, hold on 1 second. No, wait. I think I might have.
If somebody tries to share on top of it, it may bump it out.
It did. So I'm kicking her out now.
Okay.
So I just kicked her out. It still didn't do anything, but I'm going to make you co-host.
Okay.
Might we have to just like close the whole room and then come back in again?
That's going to have to happen. I'm going to try and share something real quick here myself and see if it bumps it out. All right, now I'm going to stop sharing and it comes right back. I
Okay.
would say we're going to need to abandon this room and come right back to it.
Okay, so the link will still be the same, everyone. But I'm going to end the meeting and then open it back up again. Okay?
Okay, sorry. Thanks.
That's okay. Thank you, David. And you can continue.
All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for your patience as we fix our technical difficulties here. We're looking forward to getting back into the swing of things with our next presenter. We're going to wait maybe just a few more seconds for more people to join us. Seems we have an attrition of about 8 people. Let's let some of them find their way back before we get started. All right. We're just going to let them join us. And we can go right ahead with the presentation in front of us. Thank you.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, my name is Michelle Nicole French, and my project is on the analysis of post-imperialism through the lens of Equatorial Guinea. To get some background information on Equatorial Guinea, the Pygmy people were the first inhabitants of the region, and then around the 12th and 13th century, the different Bantu tribes, specifically the Fang and the Bubi people, they migrated from Cameroon and settled in Equatorial Guinea. And around 1472, Portuguese explorer Fernando Po, or his Portuguese name, Fernão de Po, made a voyage to the island after trying to reach India, but he ended up reaching the island of Bioko, which is a part of now Equatorial Guinea. And then 2 years later, the island was officially colonized by the Portuguese and was used as a hotspot for sugarcane development and accessing timber. Though Bioko was colonized, the Portuguese had a hard time establishing permanent settlements in the rest of the islands due to the mass resistance from the Fang and Bubi tribes. And in 1778, Queen Maria of Portugal and King Charles III of Spain, they signed the Treaty of El Pardo, giving over the island of Bioko and the surrounding islets and commercial rights of Biafra to the Spanish Empire. The Spanish Empire at the time wanted to create slave trade networks on the mainland as well, but fell due to the resistance of the two main Bantu tribes that had inhabited the other islands. And at the time, the Spanish Empire, the Portuguese Empire, and the British Empire were very high in their settlements across different parts of the Americas and Africa. And in 1808, the Spanish Empire leased the islands to the British Empire after pressure from the British to end the transatlantic slave trade. But in 1836, they regained the islands back, but were not able to make any permanent colonial settlements until 20 years later, around the 1850s to 1860s. During that time, during the 1860s to 1950s, the Spanish Empire would develop different parts of Spanish Guinea, and they would bring in different Black migrant workers from the Caribbean, from their former settlements to the Caribbean, and even other countries in Africa, like Nigeria and Cameroon, to work on the cocoa plants. And due to the harsh labor conditions and the spread of European diseases, the Bubis and the Fang tribe, they started revolting the Spanish rule around the 1820s to the 1890s, which is why the Spanish government hired migrant workers from other countries and their former colonies. And those foreign workers also endured such harsh conditions while working on these cocoa plant fields. And around 1926, the Fang tribe of Real Muni started to fight for independence. And which led to the Spanish Empire declaring war on the Fang tribe. And eventually, the Fang tribe, it was a brutal war in which thousands had died, but it eventually led to the independence of Equatorial Guinea in 1968, which, as you can see in the picture here of the President Messias Nguema and the Spanish government, they're signing the independence treaty. And the country was renamed Equatorial Guinea. After Independence Day, Equatorial Guinea nation lost all their resources from the Spanish government, especially the trade markets, causing the economy to collapse. And during this time, during their new independence, in 1968, Messias Nguema became the first president of Equatorial Guinea. And he was very anti-European. He did not want to have any contact with the former colonial power of the Spanish. And he was very paranoid about being overthrown by the Spanish. And he aligned the country with pro-communism, so Cuba and Russia during these times. And he was a vicious dictator known just for being mentally unstable throughout the nation. And during this time, Equatorial Guinea was dealing with a massive economic failure, and due to this, Matthias was eventually overthrown just 11 years after the start of his presidency by his nephew and President Teodoro Obiang Nguema. And after Teodoro became the second president of Equatorial Guinea, he was considered more humane than his uncle at first. But as time went on in the 1990s, when the discovery of oil reserves and gold and petroleum outlets were discovered in the nation, which helped make the country into one of Africa's richest nations, after increasing the GDP. Teodoro just started to exploit those resources for his own gain, his family's gain. And so far my project is on of just analyzing this whole family regime from independence until now.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. French. So here's where we are. We're technically out of time for this session, but I would like for us to continue so that all of our presenters get a chance to present. Ms. Hobson, what do you think about this?
Can you repeat that one more time, please? Sorry, I was away from the computer.
Yeah, so I was saying that this session is supposed to end at 12, but there's likely still a couple more presenters. I was wondering if we might give them time to present, or
Yes.
do we have to?
I believe 12:10 was the next start time.
All right.
I believe so. If people need to switch over, that's fine, but we definitely want to give people who need to present time to present. So please proceed.
All right, so let's carry on. Next presenter, please.
Mr. Johnson will be our last presentation for today.
Thank you. Y'all see my screen?
Not yet.
How about now?
All right. We believe something's coming up. Yes, we can see that.
Okay. So, good afternoon. I'm Michael Johnson, and my paper is on the enduring legacy of Parker Gray High School that was located in Alexandria, Virginia. Alexandria, Virginia history reaches back more than 13,000 years. The wealth of the city of Alexandria was directly linked to the work of enslaved and free African Americans because during the 1850s, Alexandria became one of the 3 largest domestic trading ports in America, slave trading ports. After the Laurel Grove School, another one, excuse me 1 second, because something's popping. Okay, yeah. After Civil War, African Americans in Alexandria had several community-based schools, like the one-room Laurel Grove Colored School, and other small schools survived because of the cultural capital of the Black community. But after 40 years of community complaints, the city finally agreed to find a new co-educational public school. The school would honor the 2 principals of Snowden and Hollowell schools, John Parker and Sarah Gray. Many local, regional, national, and worldwide leaders were educated at Parker Gray. Notable civil rights leaders, musicians, doctors, lawyers, and the first certified African-American female scuba diver were educated at Parker Gray. This is Miss Cheryl Lee Marshall. She dove on some slave wreckages, and she also had dove on ships around the world. The golden age of Parker Gray was nationally noted athletes who excelled in spite of the fact that students were only given half of a football field to play on. Earl Lloyd was the first African-American to play in the NBA, and this past Saturday, they put a marker up right in front of the home in which he grew up in. 1964, desegregation was forced on the city of Alexandria. In 1965, Parker Gray High School became a middle school. In 1979, Parker Gray closed its doors. Excuse me. So, 1979, when Parker Gray Middle School closed its doors for the last time, I attended that school from what they call Charles Houston Elementary, which was named after Charles Hamilton Houston. And we didn't know what to expect going from one Black school into an all-white school because I had never had a white teacher. Alexandria had very poor, the schools had, excuse me, I just got thrown off track for a minute. The school had, Alexandria School had poor education, inadequate integration strategies, and white backlash, which coupled with gentrification destroyed the pillars and the infrastructure of the schools, the shops, and the businesses, leaving African Americans in Alexandria with a greatly diminished sense of stability and leadership. Stories of Parker Gray teachers and students and educators using community-based values to overcome adversity and push the community forward must become part of the history taught today in the public schools of Alexandria. Even though I just named off a few, I would also like to say that Mr. Samuel Tucker pretty much had the first sit-in back in 1939. Most people relate the Greensboro sit-in as being one of the first, but really in 1939 in Alexandria, Virginia, Mr. Samuel Parker is the one that, excuse me, Mr. Samuel Tucker is the one that had the first sit-in. And I will conclude with that, and I'll stop sharing my screen for the sake of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Johnson. So we have had a really great, despite the technical interruption, we've had a really great presentation here by our speakers today. We started off with Black love and, expressions of which that can be the foundation for incredible, strong Black communities that flourish despite the odds. And then we moved on to see those different communities in various places in the United States produce spectacular people who became artists that were distinguished in opera, or produce people who now are putting out incredible media in Afrofuturism, produce markets that turn into sites of resistance for gentrification, or produce schools that produce a lot of people that go on to break barriers across different sports and entertainment sectors. And we even talked about what was going on in Africa and some of the resistance movements that were there. We have time for 2 questions before we close up. So are there any questions from the audience? If so, please type them in the chat. Otherwise, you can unmute to ask your own question.
Hello, good afternoon. It's afternoon now. Good afternoon. I have a question for Ms. Lee. I wanted to know if any of the African American opera singers that you covered had been pressured to abandon opera for other genres because, the whole thing of Black folks should not be singing opera. So were there any instances of that?
So far that I can recollect from the massive research, I don't remember coming across any. Even the first, to me, considered the first, Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield, she was actually supported by her mistress to sing opera. So far, I haven't run across any that were deterred from singing opera.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Anyone else have a question for any of the speakers today? If not, I have one. Okay, so I wanted to ask Mr. Williams, you talked about the community being built on swampland. I understand that that's not ideal. So I wanted to know, how did the geographical environment affect the culture at Turner Station?
Well, the way it affected it is when Bethlehem Steel was built, you had major segregation was the law of the land. So the Spurs Point built homes for white people, but they would not build homes for blacks. So in that particular area, the area itself was actually water. And then what they were able to do is Joshua Thomas, who originally owned the land, what he was going to use it for is you had a bunch of seagulls, and he was going to cultivate seagull poop and sell it as fertilizer. And what he realized is that if he brought in a little bit of land, a little bit of sand, he would be able to push the water back. So therefore, he was able to sell the land, and then they were able to develop Turner Station. And then still sometimes today, it will flood if there's a lot of rain. So it's still built on that land, but he was able to bring in dirt and build upon it so that they were able to build a community.
Thank you very much for your answer. So we're going to wrap this up here. Everyone who's in the audience, please join me in thanking our panelists. Once again, I'm going to put the links for the Google slide deck in the slides, all right, in the chat, so that you guys will be able to carry on to some of our other great presentations elsewhere. I hope that you continue to enjoy the panels that we have today. And please, if you haven't already, make sure to fill out an evaluation form. We need those so that we can continue to do things like this every year. Thank you all for coming and attending. Have a great afternoon.